The Krelvan Battlemaster just declared war over a kitchen utensils comment, and the human won't stop laughing. Commander Zilax's secondary hearts were palpitating in a way that usually preceded career-ending disasters. In his 300 cycles serving the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, he had negotiated 17 border disputes, mediated 4 trade wars, and once talked down a Vraxian hive queen from glassing an entire moon. None of that compared to the absolute catastrophe unfolding in Conference Room 7. Battlemaster Korvax, decorated champion of the Krelvan Empire, bearer of the Crimson Honors, veteran of the Scarlet Campaigns, stood trembling with what Zilax desperately hoped was merely rage and not the precursor to actual violence. His combat plates had flushed the deep purple that indicated a warrior preparing for lethal engagement. And the human. Emma Johnson, their cultural exchange coordinator, was doubled over, tears streaming down her face, making those bizarre, gasping sounds that humans produced when experiencing extreme amusement. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. "I apologize, Battlemaster," Zilax said quickly, his translator working overtime. "Cultural liaison." Johnson clearly misspoke. "Your collection is magnificent, truly." "Misspoke?" Korvax's voice resonated with the harmonic overtones that his species used before issuing formal challenges. "She gazed upon the blade of Kelthar, forged in the dying light of our first sun, carried by my ancestors through 10,000 years of honored combat. And she said it's a bread knife," Emma wheezed, wiping her eyes. "Because it is. Look at those serrations. That's literally a bread knife." The diplomatic staff, 3 Centauri observers, 2 Vraxian liaison officers, and Commander Zilax himself, collectively felt their respective biological equivalents of blood pressure spike to dangerous levels. "Liaison Johnson," Zilax said, his voice taking on the carefully controlled tone that his instructors had taught him for preventing interstellar incidents. "Perhaps we should take a brief recess." "No." Korvax's hand moved to the hilt of the blade in question. "She will explain this insult. Now." Emma finally straightened up, still grinning. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. It's just..." She gestured at the elaborate display case Korvax had brought. "That's not a weapons collection. That's a kitchen knife set. A really nice one, actually. Williams, Sonoma, Henkel's. These are quality." The Centauri observer closest to the door quietly activated his emergency beacon. "These blades," Korvax said, each word dropping like a stone, "have ended the lives of hundreds of warriors. They have carved through armor plating. They have been blessed by the war priests of 17 temple worlds." Sure, Emma said, walking closer to examine the display. "But look, this one here? That's a boning knife. See the curved blade, flexibility? It's for separating meat from bone. And this one with the holes in the blade? That's a cheese knife. The holes keep the cheese from sticking." "Cheese," Korvax repeated flatly. "Yeah, dairy product. Comes from... Okay, you probably don't have the same animals, but the principle..." "Battlemaster," Zilax interjected desperately, "I'm certain there's a reasonable cultural explanation." "This blade," Korvax said, removing a long, slender weapon from the case, "was carried by my grandsire in the Battle of the Red Moons. It drank the blood of 50 enemies in a single engagement." Emma tilted her head. "Filleting knife. Maybe 8, 9 inches. Good for fish, some cuts of meat. The narrow blade lets you get right along the bones." She paused. "Though if it's been used in combat and not properly maintained, you've probably got some serious edge damage. These things need regular honing." The Vraxian liaison officer's translator made a sound that roughly approximated a human whimper. "You dare," Korvax began. "Do you actually sharpen these?" Emma asked, genuinely curious now, because I noticed some of them have that micro serration pattern that means they haven't been properly maintained. My cousin's a chef, and she would absolutely lose her mind if she saw someone letting knives get into this condition. Commander Zilax made a desperate gesture to his aide. Get the ambassador, get the high chancellor, get anyone with authority to declare an emergency diplomatic immunity. Wait, Emma said, pulling out her tablet. Hang on, let me show you something. Emma's fingers moved across her tablet screen with the casual confidence of someone who had no idea they were potentially triggering an interstellar war. Okay, so here's a human cooking show. Really popular back home. This guy's making fish. She turned the tablet toward Korvax. On the screen, a human chef moved with fluid precision, his knife identical to one of Korvax's sacred blades, removing bones from a whole salmon with movements that looked almost like a dance. Korvax stared. His combat plates slowly faded from purple to a confused gray. See, Emma said, that's what that knife is actually designed for. The flexibility, the length, the taper, it's all about following the natural contours of... Stop, Korvax said. Stop the display. Emma paused the video. The human chef was frozen mid-slice, the blade halfway through the fish. That motion, Korvax said slowly. Show it again. Emma replayed the last few seconds. The chef's hands moved with practiced efficiency, the knife seeming to know exactly where to go. That is the third form of the Kelthar combat style, Korvax said. The flowing river technique. It takes warriors 20 years to master. Huh, Emma said. This guy probably learned it in culinary school. That's like 2 years. Maybe 3 if you're going for the advanced degree. One of the Zentari observers actually sat down, his leg stalks no longer able to support him. Battlemaster, Zilax tried again. I'm certain this is simply a case of... Show me another, Korvax demanded. Emma shrugged and pulled up a different video. This is from a competition show. They've got 60 minutes to prepare a 3-course meal. This woman's breaking down a whole chicken. The tablet screen showed a human woman moving through a chicken with swift, precise cuts. In less than 2 minutes, the bird had been completely separated into parts. The 8th descending strike, Korvax whispered. The talon's path, the severance of wings. His voice grew increasingly strained. These are advanced combat techniques. They require decades of training under a blade master. Or like one afternoon with a YouTube tutorial, Emma said. Here, watch this one. This is a kid, can't be more than 16, doing competition prep work. They time these. The video showed a teenage human reducing a pile of vegetables to perfectly uniform pieces in a matter of seconds. The knife never stopped moving. Korvax's hand had unconsciously moved away from his blade. How many of your people can do this? Cook? Emma laughed. I mean, most of us. Some people are better than others, obviously. My grandma could process a whole turkey in like 10 minutes. I'm decent, but nothing special. Why? Commander Zilax felt a cold horror settling over him as he began to understand the implications. Liaison Johnson. How many humans would you estimate possess these knife skills? I don't know. Millions? Billions? Anyone who cooks regularly, basically. It's not exactly rare. The diplomatic staff exchanged glances. The same terrible realization was dawning on all of them. Battlemaster, Zilax said carefully. Perhaps we should contact the Krelvan military archives. If these implements are indeed... They are already accessing the records, Korvax said, his voice hollow. He had activated his combat implant, and data was clearly streaming directly into his neural interface. By the ancestors, by all the sacred forge fires. What? Emma asked. What's wrong? The blade of Kelthar, Korvax said. First recorded use in combat, 6,300 cycles ago. Origin, unknown, attributed to the war god's divine armory. He looked at Emma. Your people have been using these for food preparation for how long? I don't know. Thousands of years? Bronze Age at least for the basic designs. These modern ones with the steel alloys, maybe a few hundred years. The curved talon of separation, Korvax continued, pulling another blade from the case. 4,000 cycles of military history, used in 18 major campaigns. Boning knife, Emma said. Probably similar to your planet's livestock processing, if you have livestock? The honored blade of cheese division, one of the Centauri observers said weakly, reading from his own data terminal. 3,000 cycles, 73 documented battles. Yeah, that's what I said. Cheese knife. Korvax carefully, almost reverently, placed the blade back in its case. I need to see your weapons. My what? Your actual weapons, your human implements of war. If these are your food preparation tools, I must know what you use for combat. Emma blinked. Guns? Missiles? I don't really know much about military stuff. I'm a civilian. You must have personal defense implements. I've got pepper spray in my purse. Does that count? The silence that followed was profound. Let me make sure I understand, Commander Zilak said, his voice very calm in the way that suggested he was barely holding on to his composure. You're telling us that humans don't carry blade weapons for personal defense? Why would we? Emma asked. That's weird. You'd get arrested in most places. But you all possess these skills. Korvax gestured at the tablet where the cooking videos were still queued. Combat-level blade work. Cooking-level blade work, Emma corrected. It's not the same thing. Liaison Johnson, Zilak said, would you be willing to provide a practical demonstration? We have a food preparation facility on level 3. You want me to cook something? Please. 20 minutes later, the entire diplomatic staff, Battlemaster Korvax, and 3 hastily summoned Krelvan weapons experts were crowded into the station's commissary kitchen. Emma had borrowed a chef's knife from the facility staff and was examining a pile of vegetables that the confused kitchen manager had provided. Okay, Emma said. So what do you want me to make? Whatever would require the most blade work, Zilak said. Emma shrugged. Sure. I'll do a stir-fry. Need everything cut pretty fine for that. She pulled an onion toward her and began slicing. Her hands moved with the unconscious efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. One of the Krelvan weapons experts made a choking sound. The dancing blade technique, he whispered. She's using the dancing blade technique for vegetables. It's Julienne, Emma said, not looking up. Her knife moved in a steady rhythm. You want uniform pieces so everything cooks evenly, see? She rotated the onion, her knife finding the exact right angle for each cut. The weapons expert was pulling up holographic displays, comparing Emma's movements to archived combat footage. The patterns matched perfectly. This is impossible, he said. This level of precision requires neural combat augmentation, muscle memory training protocols, years of... I learned from a cooking show when I was like 12, Emma said. She'd moved on to carrots, the knife reducing them to perfect matchsticks. My mom worked late a lot, so I started making dinner. You just practice until it feels natural. She demonstrated a rocking motion with the knife, mincing garlic with rapid controlled strikes. See, you use your knuckles as a guide, and the blade never really leaves the cutting board. It's all about efficiency. Korvax was watching, with the intensity of a warrior analyzing an opponent's fighting style. Show me the chicken technique again. The one from the video? I mean, I can break down a chicken, but I don't have... We have something similar, the kitchen manager said quickly, producing what looked like a local bird analog from the freezer. Will this work? Sure. Emma examined the bird, feeling for the joints. Okay, so you want to find where the bones naturally separate. There's less resistance that way. Her knife moved, finding the hip joint, and the leg came away cleanly. See? You're not cutting through bone, you're cutting around it. She worked her way through the bird with casual competence, explaining each cut as she went. The alien observers watched in complete silence. The wing comes off here. Same principle. Find the joint. The breast meat you can take off in one piece if you follow the rib cage. She was finished in under 3 minutes. There you go, ready to cook. The Krellvan weapons expert was frantically documenting everything. Every movement corresponds to a documented combat form, the precision, the economy of motion. This is master-level technique. This is Tuesday evening-level technique, Emma said. My grandma could do this in half the time, and she's 73. Your grandmother? Yeah. She was a lunch lady for like 40 years. School cafeteria fed hundreds of kids every day. Emma started heating oil in a pan. You want to see really impressive knife work? Watch a professional chef during dinner rush. They'll process ingredients like this for hours. Korvax looked at Zilax. Commander, we need to speak privately. In the observation room overlooking the kitchen, Korvax pulled up a holographic display. These are the combat readiness assessments for the Krellvan military. Standard blade proficiency for a soldier, 200 hours of training. Advanced proficiency, 2,000 hours. Master level, 20,000 hours over multiple decades. He gestured at Emma, who was now stir-frying vegetables with the same casual efficiency she'd shown throughout. That human learned these skills as a child. For food preparation, she considers herself not that good. I'm beginning to understand your concern, Zilax said quietly. We have been using human food preparation implements as weapons of war for 6,000 cycles, Korvax continued. Our greatest blade masters have dedicated their lives to techniques that human children learn from entertainment videos. Our most sacred combat forms are the byproduct of culinary efficiency. One of the weapons experts spoke up. Battlemaster, the implications go beyond mere embarrassment. If human civilians possess this level of blade skill as a matter of routine, then what do their actual warriors possess? Korvax finished. Yes, I am aware. Zilax pulled up the human's file on his datapad. Emma Johnson, former restaurant manager, civilian occupation, no military, service, no combat training. He looked up. She mentioned her grandmother. A food service worker in an educational facility, Korvax said, processing hundreds of meals per day for decades. The repetitions alone would... He trailed off, doing calculations. Commander, we need to contact the High Council immediately. Agreed, but first, Zilax turned to the communications officer. Send an inquiry to Earth's diplomatic mission. I need to know the answer to a very specific question. 20 minutes later, Emma had plated her stir-fry and was offering samples to the increasingly disturbed alien observers. The response came through on Zilax's tablet. He read it twice to make sure he'd understood correctly. Battlemaster, he said, according to Earth's cultural attaché, approximately 65% of adult humans report cooking at home regularly. An estimated 40% would be classified as having good to excellent knife skills. Korvax was very still. Of their total population? 8 billion individuals. Yes. So 3 billion humans possess combat-level blade proficiency as a cooking skill. That appears to be correct. Emma noticed the silence and looked over. Everything okay? You guys look kind of pale. Well, paler than usual. Korvax approached her slowly. Liaison Johnson. I must offer you a formal apology. For what? My people have been misusing these implements. We have treated culinary tools as weapons of war. We have built our combat doctrines around kitchenware. He gestured at his blade collection. I have brought you the equivalent of a collection of forks and spoons and declared them sacred instruments of battle. Emma's eyes widened. Then she started laughing again. Oh my God, you're serious. You've really been fighting wars with... She couldn't finish. She was laughing too hard. It is not amusing, Korvax said, but his combat plates had faded to a sheepish brown. It is humiliating. No, I'm sorry, Emma gasped. It's just... Okay. She took a breath. Look, they're good knives. Really good quality. And if they've worked for you, then there's no problem, right? A tool is a tool. But the proper maintenance, Korvax said. You mentioned that they were not being cared for correctly. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to use them for whatever purpose, you need to keep them sharp, hone them regularly, oil the blades if they're carbon steel. She pulled out her phone. Here, I can send you some links to knife care tutorials. There's this great channel that explains different sharpening techniques. Commander Zilax watched as the fearsome battle master of the Krelvan Empire carefully took notes on proper cutlery maintenance from a human restaurant manager. This, he reflected, was either the strangest diplomatic resolution he'd ever witnessed or the beginning of an entirely new era of galactic relations. Possibly both. The official report from the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, filed 3 days later, used very careful language to describe what had occurred. Words like cultural misunderstanding and technological convergence and parallel development of implement design featured prominently. What the report didn't mention was the emergency session of the High Council, where 100 species had to grapple with the realization that humanity had apparently developed military-grade combat techniques as a side effect of making dinner. Commander Zilax's supplementary report was more direct. Recommend immediate review of all human household items currently in use. Kitchen implements represent only one category. Implications for other tool classifications unknown but potentially significant. Battlemaster Korvax had submitted his own recommendation. Mandatory training for all Krelvan military personnel in proper blade maintenance and utilization protocols, human standard. He'd also requested permission to establish an ongoing cultural exchange program, which was how, 2 weeks later, Emma found herself teaching a cooking class to 15 of the most decorated warriors in the Krelvan military. Okay, she said, surveying her unlikely students. Today we're learning basic knife skills, starting with how to hold the knife properly. She demonstrated the pinch grip. See, you want your thumb and forefinger on the blade itself, not just gripping the handle. Gives you way more control. The warriors diligently adjusted their grips. Several of them were taking notes. Now we're going to practice the rock chop. It's the most efficient way to process herbs or vegetables. She demonstrated on a pile of basil, the knife moving in that steady rhythm. The blade never really leaves the board. It's all in the wrist. Korvax was concentrating with the same intensity he'd probably once brought to actual combat training. Like this? Little more angle. There you go. Perfect. This is oddly satisfying, one of the other warriors admitted. Right? Emma grinned. There's something really zen about good knife work. My old head chef used to say that prep time was her meditation. Your head chef, Korvax said, not looking up from his mincing. She was skilled. Oh yeah, Maria could break down a side of beef like nobody's business, worked in restaurants for 30 years. We should invite her to provide advanced instruction. She'd probably love that, actually. She's retired now and keeps complaining about being bored. Emma moved down the line, checking everyone's technique. Okay, you're choking up on the handle a bit too much. Relax your grip. The knife does the work, you're just guiding it. The door to the commissary kitchen opened, and Commander Zilax entered with 2 other officials Emma didn't recognize. Don't mind us, Zilax said. We're simply observing. Cool, we're just working on basic cuts today. Next week we're doing protein butchery. Protein butchery. Yeah, breaking down larger cuts of meat into portions. Should be fun. One of the officials leaned over to Zilax. This is the Cultural Exchange Program. Indeed, Battlemaster Korvax has been most enthusiastic. I can see that. Is he taking notes? Apparently, proper blade angle is crucial for uniform vegetable sizing. They watched for a few more minutes. Emma had moved on to teaching julienne cuts, demonstrating the technique on a carrot. Liaison Johnson, Zilax called out, a brief question. You mentioned that your knives at home are superior to the ones you're using here? Oh yeah, definitely. I've got this amazing Gyuto knife, Japanese style, really nice steel. Cost me like $300, but it's worth it. Holds an edge forever. The officials exchanged glances. 300, that's human currency? Yeah. It's not even like a super fancy one. Professional grade stuff can run thousands. My cousin's got this handmade knife from a blacksmith in Oregon that cost her $2,000. I see, Zilax made a note. And these are common purchases? For people who are into cooking, sure. Though most people just get a decent set for like 50 to $100. You don't need anything fancy for basic stuff. Another note. Zilax was beginning to suspect that the current crisis was just the tip of a very large iceberg. Okay, everyone, Emma announced. You've got about 30 more minutes of practice. Then we're going to use all these vegetables to make a soup. Real cooking is the best way to understand why the prep work matters. Korvax raised his hand. Instructor Emma, what about the sharpening techniques you mentioned? When will we learn those? Next month, maybe? You need to develop the basic skills first. No point in learning to sharpen if you don't know what a properly sharp knife should feel like. Of course, that makes sense. Emma grabbed her water bottle and stepped over to where Zilax and his observers were standing. So what brings you guys by? Want to join the class? I've got extra stations. No, thank you. We were simply assessing the program's effectiveness. Oh, they're doing great. Korvax is a natural, actually. Really good hand-eye coordination. She lowered her voice. Between you and me, I think he's enjoying this way more than he expected. Asked me if we could add a second session per week. Did he? Yeah. Said something about reclaiming the ancient techniques, which is kind of intense for cooking. But hey, whatever motivates you, right? She checked her watch. Oh, I should get back. We're behind schedule, and I promised they could eat what they made today. After she'd returned to the class, the officials stood in silence for a moment. Commander, one of them finally said, I believe we need to expand the scope of the investigation. Agreed. I've already requested reports from every species that has had extended contact with humans. We need to know what else we've been misunderstanding. Do you think this is unique to Blade? Implements? Zilax watched Emma laugh at something one of the warriors had said, watched her adjust another student's grip with casual expertise, watched the most dangerous military force in 3 sectors diligently practicing how to dice an onion. No, he said, I don't think it's unique at all. From the kitchen, Emma's voice carried clearly. Okay, who wants to learn how to make a proper stock? Fair warning, my grandmother's recipe takes 3 hours, but it's totally worth it. 15 elite warriors enthusiastically raised their hands. Commander Zilax made another note in his report. Request additional funding for expanded cultural exchange programs. Also recommend comprehensive review of human hobby activities. If cooking is this significant, we need to know what else we're missing. He paused, then added, and someone should probably warn the council about human grandmothers.